Hi there, today I'm going to be taking a look at some disc brake rotors from Magura, specifically the model MDR-P, and I'm going to be looking at them in the 220mm size. So these are a two-piece rotor design and they're marketed towards e-bikes, but obviously you can use them on traditional bikes. I personally don't own an e-bike, so I'm just going to be using them on my standard bike. These rotors have a couple of design features which are supposed to aid in performance. Let's take a look at these rotors. So they just come in this straightforward cardboard packaging. I've got some gloves on so I don't contaminate them. It has a little sticker on the corner here telling you which version you've got. So it's available in a 180, a 203 or the 220s that I've got here. And the name MDR-P, so I'm assuming it means Magura Disc Rotor, and then the P stands for performance. So just get these out. So got a little bit of paperwork explaining how to install the rotor, although it's pretty straightforward. This uses 6 bolts and it comes with the bolts and they have some thread lock pre-applied. So here's the rotor itself. It's a two-piece design. So it's a steel braking surface with an aluminum or aluminium center spider that's riveted on. So one of the benefits of this rotor is it has this dovetail system. So you can see it's like puzzle pieces where it's been shaped. So obviously over time when you're braking, the disc is going to expand and contract, and these dovetails are supposed to help with the rigidity of the disc. Because one of the things I found with these two-piece systems is over time the rivets can tend to get a little bit rattly. And allegedly this design is supposed to help with that. It's also supposed to help produce a more stable disc, because obviously if your disc's rattling you're going to have to overcome that rattle before it starts braking. And it uses a 2mm thick steel braking surface, and then it's a 4mm, it's been shaped obviously, a spider in the center. As I said in my intro, this is marketed as an e-bike disc, so it does have a little punch out here for a speed sensor magnet if your e-bike requires that. I'm going to compare it with a couple of other discs. I've got a Hope 220 floating rotor. This is a 1.8mm versus the 2 on the Magura. And then here is a Trick Stuff 223. This uses 2mm as well. Just for comparison's sake, I just thought I'd show you it in some brake calipers. I've not had any issues running a 2mm thick rotor in my, these are SRAM code RSCs, but there's no issue with the actual interface of the rotor. I've also got a set of Shimano, same thing, these have not been used, but there's no issue with the actual rotor interface that I've had anyway. If you did have any issues with it, you could just re-bleed it and just have the pistons slightly further out. But I say I've not had any issues. The other thing I wanted to talk about was post mounts. I always use Hope's mounts just because they find that their chart is really easy to understand. So you just work out what size post mount you have on your fork or your bike, and then work out what size rotor you need, and you'll be able to pick the one you need. They're just given a letter, so I've got the P and the M. Obviously you'll have to check on your bike because there can be issues running a 220 on the rear of some bikes. They have a limit. I just wanted to check the weight on these. So they're supposed to be about 240-ish for the 220. And it looks like they are. So obviously they're slightly heavier than other rotors because they're slightly thicker, both on the spider and on the actual disc surface. But hopefully they should end up being more stable and last longer. Here's what the rotor looks like when it's actually installed on a wheel. So I've not used the factory bolts, I've used some oil slick tie bolts. But just to give you an idea of what it's like. So this is on a 29er, obviously it's a 220 rotor. So that was a look at some Magura disc rotors. Now, I've not had too much time on these rotors because the weather's been pretty filthy, but on the initial rides they've been pretty good. Now, I've been running 220mm rotors for just over a year, so I'm pretty familiar with how they feel, and these ones have been good so far on the rides I've done on them. I will obviously be doing further updates later on in the year once I've had more time on them. Specifically, in the summer is going to be the time I think you're going to be able to tell if the benefits of these actually come into play when the discs are getting much hotter. But if you got this far into the video, I appreciate it. And if you've got any comments or questions, please feel free to leave them in the box below. And thanks for watching.